Hello, everybody. Sorry, we're having a tad bit of technical difficulty there. Looks like we got to work out though. So that was our chance to have a little bit of fun with some cool music to an intro. Let me introduce myself. My name is Patrick Wickard. This is Live with Breathe America, and I will be your host tonight. We're going to talk about some pretty serious stuff tonight. So we're going to talk about where we're at in our country right now, what I see. And we're going to talk about the siege of Washington, D.C., the siege of the White House. Now, it's really easy for us to believe that we live in this very dangerous time. And, I mean, we see in the media all the time, we've got protests all the time. We've got counter-protests all the time. We have looting and riots. I mean, American cities are literally on fire right now. But there's a but here. As you guys all should know by now, I don't exactly trust the media. This is the reason why I choose to go and see for myself and share it with all of you guys. So yes, we are preparing to go to Washington, D.C. We will be there at the very start of this thing that they are calling the siege of the White House. There are a lot of people or a lot of organizations and groups that are going to be in there. And I don't know what we're walking into, you guys. I really don't. What's up, buddy? You know we're on a live show.
Yeah, well.
My son decided to join us. But yeah, anyways, so with us going to DC, it got me thinking about everything else that I'm seeing going on in the country right now. So what's interesting is we see a whole lot of division, and it's something we talk about a lot. Now, the question you got to ask yourself is, where does this division come from? Does it come from the American people? Or does it come from somewhere else? Is this something being done to us or done by us? Because in the United States of America, this place is supposed to be governed by us, period. So if it's not being done for us or by us, then it's being done to us. At least that's kind of how I see it. So I know we're going to get into a lot today. We're going to talk about a lot of different things. I'm also very, very interested in your guys' thoughts on the things that you're seeing. We have issues going on, whether it's systemic racism, the debate over it, whether it's police brutality, whether it's black on black crime, whether it's there are debates happening all over on dozens of different issues. And meanwhile, all this is happening while we are smack dab in the middle of a presidential election. We haven't seen a single debate. We haven't seen campaign rallies. We're seeing very little campaigning being done on this campaign, which I find really interesting. There's a lot of people that think that this is the most important election that we've ever had, right? Like that everything comes down to this. There are two sides that are polar opposites. One, and each side believes the same thing, that if the other side wins, this is the end of America. Well, I have to challenge that belief system, because regardless of which side wins, that person will only be president for 4 years. And then we get a chance to do it again. So, but where does all this come from? What are we dealing with? What's the root of the cause? Like, what's the root? What's the end game, if it is a game? There are a lot of questions that we have to dig into, and there's a lot of questions that we have to ask in order to get to the truth. And ultimately, finding out the truth is important. This is the reason why I go to protest, to see for myself. This is the reason why I don't watch the mainstream media. I watch it a whole lot more now for you guys than I ever did before. And man, I got to tell you, it's hard. It is hard to watch these reports and try to find facts about anything. Somebody's playing around. But yeah, finding the facts when we live in a world where all we really hear is opinion-based media or opinion-based news. We get to listen to other people's opinion, but we don't get to see. I'm going to get to that comment, whoever you are. But yeah, there is a lot going on. There's a lot to unpack. So ultimately, at the end of the day, though, I live in a different world. And this is important for all of you guys to know. I started Breathe America, right? I get to see literally 2,000 people sit around and communicate from all different sides, and most of the time done from a place of peace, love, and understanding. So you want me to believe that that America is divided, then why is it we're able to help a little boy have a birthday party? Why is it we're able to build each other up every day. Maybe the story isn't quite what we're being told. Now, if you only look at one source of stories, one source of information, you might not ever see that. You might not see the good in our nation. And that being said, I think it's important that you guys all know, and we always remember that this is still America. This is still the United States of America. We still have a Constitution. That Constitution still protects all of us. None of this has changed. None of it has changed, and none of it is going to change. At least I don't see it happening anytime soon. Now, do we have problems that need to be addressed? Absolutely. Is there any country in this world that doesn't have problems they need to address? Nope, sure isn't. So the question is, how do we address these issues? Do we address them as Americans, or are we going to address them from right and left, or Republican and Democrat? Because I don't know if you guys have been paying attention or not, but I've been around, for a few different presidents now. I've seen Republican presidents, I've seen Democrat presidents, and I've seen it both ways. I've seen it go both ways. I don't really see the American people voices being heard in Congress. The people, literally, the people that are supposed to represent us, don't represent us. They represent special interests, and they represent themselves. They represent their pocketbooks. We have 70% of all congressmen and senators are millionaires, yet 3% of the U.S. population are millionaires. How is this equal representation? How do they represent us exactly? For me, what it feels like, what it looks like, is that the United States of America has a problem, and that problem is that our politicians now consider themselves the ruling class over the rest of us. That is a problem. When they pass laws that don't apply to them, and yet turn around and pass laws that only apply to us and exempt themselves from those laws, we have a problem. When they're able to vote themselves a raise every year and pay themselves for life after one term, and their children are able to go to college without ever having to pay back a financial loan. The government literally pays for all of their kids to go to college. So ask yourself this: how is that okay? How is that even possible? How are we in a system where a man can get elected, or a woman can get elected to office, go serve one term? Let's say Congress gets called into session once that year. They show up, they do 100 days if they show up every day of work, and then they go home for the rest of the year, the other 265 days of the year. And then they come back the next year and they do this 4 times, and then they retire. They don't run again. Why does that person get paid $175,000 a year for the rest of their life? Why do they get the same medical insurance that Congress gets for the rest of their life? How does this make any sense to any of us? I mean, I understand that this country has issues. I understand that there are serious things that we have to discuss and things that we have to tackle on a lot of different scales or a lot of different sides. But at the end of the day, the biggest problem we have is Congress has become an obstacle to the American people rather than representing us and serving us and doing the things that they need to be doing in order to protect the American dream. They're literally standing in the way of it. They have passed off responsibility after responsibility by representing us with bureaucrats that we can't vote in and we can't get rid of. And these things have been happening for a very, very long time. And as we go further into 2020, as I grow older and older, and I see this happening more and more, and I look at my fellow Americans, I look at all of you, and I have to ask myself, when do we start to use our voices? My hope is that we start to use our voices now. My hope is that we start to change the way we elect our representatives. And I'm not saying change the way we go to vote. No, what I'm saying is right now in Congress and the Senate, they have a 95% incumbent reelection rate. 95%. We need fresh blood. We need new people. We need new ideas. We need the people to start speaking out, not rioting, not looting. That is not ultimately the way to effectively make change. Peaceful discussions and getting involved in your local communities and making our voices be heard by coming together as Americans for what is best for America. So those are some of the things we're going to talk about. And I'm going to bring on a guest. So you guys know this guest very well. This is Mr. John Lee himself. He is going to join us for a bit of discussion. I am not sure what happened there. Not sure at all. What was that, Mr. John Lee?
My fingers were off the keyboard, man. That was all you.
My bad, everybody. I am back. Sorry for the interruption, but yeah. John, so you just heard everything that I had to say. What are your thoughts, brother?
This may be a shocker, but I have no words to add to yours. I think you pretty much summed it up. I know. For me, that's insane, right?
Woo! Hey, I gotta write this down. Third, John had nothing to add. Well, there you go. It's marked down. Let it be written, right? But seriously,
thanks, folks. Good night.
Seriously, everything in our face right now, everything that we're dealing with, I mean, it seems insurmountable, John. What gives you the confidence to continue moving forward, knowing that we can make change? What gives you that confidence, John?
Patriotism. I love America. I know why America was made in the first place. I know why we have this system set up to empower people like you and me to save our own country. That is the founding. The American dream saves me, my friend. And the American dream will always be in jeopardy. You know, anytime that we fall complacent, anytime that we get okay with it being subverted, with it being infringed on, with it being dwindled away through right stripping legislation, censorship. Sorry, I just needed to totally bring that point out because we're seeing that in real time. We're literally seeing the corporate subversion of the First Amendment, sneaking through that. We can do whatever we want in our own business clause, but we're also going to establish a monopoly of social media enterprises and public voice areas where essentially it's kind of like they made a sidewalk from one inaccessible area to another, and then they just let us get used to it and then planted their sign on it and said, here's the new rules for the sidewalk, guys. Sorry, it's our sidewalk. The problem is that these social media services and corporations handle services that Americans use every single day, 10,000 times a day. And I mean, are bad for being reliant on them, right? But at the same time, it's not right. It doesn't make any sense. The only sense it makes is they're trying to create this unrest that we have. They're trying to paint this picture that America has to be fundamentally changed, even down to its power structure, to be saved. And I don't buy that.
Yeah, I don't buy that either, John. In fact, I have to fundamentally change things. And you and I personally, we've had lots of discussions on President Trump, and he seems to be a really hot issue. And there's plenty I have to say about him that's good, and there's plenty I have to say about him that's bad. Now, my largest criticism of this president so far has been that he is not a voice of unity. He literally has said a lot of really divisive things throughout his presidency that I in fact do not like. I think our president should always call to bring people together. And so that is one criticism I have of President Trump that has been strong all throughout his presidency. Now, what's interesting is I've started watching all of his press conferences as of late, and he is actually changing his words. He is actually calling to unite the country. But then I watch the news and it doesn't get reported. Not even Fox reports it correctly at this point. Not even, CNN and MSNBC and all those things I expect, but not even Fox is reporting it correctly, which is really interesting to me, because one of the things that I had said in great criticism of him was the fact that we needed a unifying voice from our government. And now we're seeing it, but nobody's actually hearing it. Or is it simply a case of it's gone too long? Did he not make that switch soon enough? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So it's a lot of different things, Patrick. To be honest, I'm going to say something that a lot of people don't understand. I don't think that Trump is the Antichrist. I know that's a shocker. Right? I also don't think that he is, perfectly innocent of some of his reputation. I think that there was a pretty strong bias from the get-go. And maybe that's based on some strong statements that he made prior to running, especially he was very vocal during the Obama era. So it's possible that he made a few enemies, speaking out his mind and his belief way before he even got into presidency, and that kind of snowballed. But everything that President Trump has been saying lately really strays from that initial impression that I've always had of Trump. And, whether or not it's his speechwriters that are doing it or him himself, he is doing the unifying speeches that I wish that would have been done a long time ago. The only problem with it is at this point, the left is convinced that Trump is basically the Antichrist. The right is convinced that Biden pretty much is the Antichrist. So there's really going to be no unification from those two major players because of our strong feelings about them right now. You know what I mean? If Biden came out and said, hey, I'm pro law and order, I'm cracking down on all these riots, I'm bringing in federal troops, I'm going to shut these things down, we still wouldn't listen. Like, we just assume that in these blanket terminologies and blanket ideas that, Biden is synonymous with the rioters, right? Trump is synonymous with, the angry people with guns that aren't just defending their properties or whatever, and they are just threatening people and stuff like that. And that's not the case. And in every situation, I see him painting the American people wrong. They're pointing out, our smallest fraction of bad apples, and they're using that as the demographic to judge all of the United States, the left, the right, as far as people constructs. And it's all done by these politicians, and that's wrong. It's just reinforced by the media bias.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things that I feel pretty strongly about at this particular moment in time, like you, John, I like to read a lot of history. I've looked back in time many, many times, and I've looked to understand where it is we come from and the concepts and the ideals that built this nation as well as the other nations, Egypt, Rome, the Aztec, the Mayans. Like, there's so many great examples throughout history of things that we can go and look at that I find completely fascinating. But one of the things that concerns me the most is like what you just said about Biden saying, I'm going to bring in federal troops, I'm going to put this down and blah, blah, blah. There comes a level of civil disobedience that we see in these nations and these countries throughout history, that once you reach this certain level of civil disobedience, it can no longer be put down with with aggressive, you can't come in and just physically stop this. And I think we're really, really close to that point now. In some cities, I think we're there. We're not there all the way across the United States, but in some cities we are definitely there, regardless of what we do or what the government's reaction, whether it's the state government or the federal government's reaction. We're going to continue to see these things in these cities like Portland, for example, for a very, very long time, because you can't stop this with violence and aggression. So that only leaves one option. And that option is to bring them to the table and to sit down and have a negotiation, not with the rioters and the looters. Those people are criminals and should be arrested and dealt with our legal system, period. But with the protesters that are out there night after night under their cause, those are the people that we need to sit down with and figure out how do we put an end to this the right way. And here's something I think a lot of people miss. We are a government by the people and for the people. So whether we like the fact that they're out there protesting or not, those are American peoples trying to get their voices heard. And therefore, they have a right to be heard in the way that they are governed. And that is a hard thing to swallow, because I don't agree with them. I don't. But if I'm going to sit here and I'm going to tell all of you that I am a constitutionalist, I believe in the Constitution of the United States of America, then that applies to all of us, all Americans. I believe in that document. I believe in what it represents. And I believe that in that document lies the answers to every situation that we have today, if we would just read it, understand it, and know what it means to us. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm a big firm believer that the First Amendment is one of the most important amendments, period. And it actually allows for a lot more than just free speech. So the First Amendment is also the right to peacefully assemble. It's the right to protest. It's the right to have free speech. It's the right to have free religion. It's the right to have a free press. Now that one's an intriguing constitutional right, my friends. Because see, the true definition of a free press is one that does not have undue influence or political slant or bias or pressure upon it. It's one that organically produces its own opinions, organically produces its own news, organically produces its own media. So, do we have a free press? Do you feel we have a free press, Patrick?
I look at press, I look at the media like this. There used to be a level, a standard that was, and keep in mind, I am speaking directly about the mainstream media right now, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, the ABC, all those kind of networks, right? The major news networks. There used to be a standard with reporting, right? And now it's not about that anymore. It's just about getting the story out fast. It's all about ratings, network ratings. So the more inflammatory it is, the more personalities you put on, the more people associate with the people on the show, the higher their ratings, the more money these companies make, and the less factual our media becomes. And I think one of the biggest problem is that we look at it like that, is that we're watching it. Like everybody, I've been asked this question many times, like, how do we fight the press? It's really simple. We stop watching it. If we kill them in their ratings, they're going to change everything. They're going to reformat everything. They're going to come at us from a different direction. Stop watching the media. There are plenty of networks. There are plenty of sources for independent news that still hold a higher journalistic standard than what you see coming out of the mainstream media.
All of this independent, on the ground journalism, your eyes and ears from an American citizen.
People that are willing to go and look for yourself, for themselves and see it for themselves and tell you what they, and that is a great source. I love seeing the live video feeds that come out from all of these events. I like watching those because you get to see for yourself. And that is one of the things that inspired me to do the things that I do. I'm big on seeing for ourselves.
Absolutely.
Looting and rioting is not protesting. 100% agree, Toby. Looting and rioting is not protesting. Looters and rioters are criminals and they need to be prosecuted under our laws. Plain and simple. Protesters are exercising the constitutional right that they are protected to represent. Now, it does get murky when you've got rioters and looters mixed in with protesters, and there's going to be some overlap there, and that's ugly. But that's something the protesters know when they go out there, and that's the risk you take. And unfortunately, that is just simply the nature of the situation right now. Moving forward, we've covered the press a little bit. I don't want to dig too much into the press. I know we've got some big shows coming up later on where we're going to go after the press pretty hard.
Absolutely.
You guys, I'm not a big fan of the media. I'm a big fan of independent journalists. I'm a big fan of those people that hold themselves to a higher standard for fact checking and things like that. Because, like Mike and I were the other day, we were talking about something. We were looking into something, right? We started digging and digging and digging. Mike's on Bing and this news or this search engine and this search. I'm on Safari and DuckDuckGo and Google, and we're pulling sources from everywhere we can find to try to answer a simple damn question. And you can't find it. Like, it should not be this hard for informed Americans to get informed. It really shouldn't. It should be a whole lot easier.
This is one of the very few times in our lives we should have listened to Alex Jones. Okay? Because Alex Jones, when they came after him for the crazy goofball stuff that he had said, and don't get me wrong, it's not always crazy goofball stuff. There were some things that, I'm like, okay, it's making the frogs gay. I mean, I think we all remember that craziness. So, like,
he was crazy.
He warned that they were cracking down on independent news sources. They were cracking down on those outside voices. And he was really adamant about it, trying to kind of whistleblow. And then our response to that was kind of like, we just dragged Mark Zuckerberg into Congress and was like, you will be the arbitrator of truth. And now I get why he was smiling the whole time. So, while he was up there going, I begrudgingly take censorship control of the United States social media service. I guess if you really want to, guys, okay, I'll censor you. And so it's really been coming for a long time, and we've just allowed it incrementally.
Well, that's how it always works. No matter what right they're trying to take away, no matter what they're trying to change in our country, they always do it piece by piece by piece by piece. And the first steps of these journeys we hardly even notice, and the people that do notice we look at as crazy.
Yep.
You know, and they just get discredited and moved along. And then fast forward 20, 30 years, and all of a sudden it's a whole different situation. But what's interesting is, like, I know this firsthand. Here's an interesting story, and I've talked about this a little bit in the group in a couple of different conversations. I worry a lot about legal precedents. And why do I worry about legal precedents? No matter what it is, what do those precedents mean, right? Our laws are built on legal precedents, right? So once a legal precedent has happened, then they can build on it from there, and build on it from there, and build on it from there, and build on it from there. So interestingly enough, if you look up my last name, you will see a very famous Supreme Court case called Wickard versus Fillmore. Now, one of my ancestors was the Secretary of Agriculture under Theodore Roosevelt, and he prosecuted an Iowa farmer for interrupting interstate commerce because he was self-sufficient, right? So he wasn't buying products, even though his farm was for this. He also had some other stuff going on, so he grew some other stuff to take care of that, right? And they actually won a Supreme Court case that set a legal precedent back in the 30s. That legal precedent is what was used to uphold Obamacare's ability to force all of us to pay into this system, right? That was the legal precedent they used. So do you think my ancestor had any clue that was going to be used in 2000 as a legal precedent to mandate the American people pay for a service whether they want it or not?
No, I bet that it was for a completely separate reason that seemed perfectly reasonable and perfectly practical at the time, but is a slippery slope to everything that you don't want to happen.
Everything you don't want to happen. And that's the thing. When legal precedents are made, we need to be very, very careful. And this is something that we don't need to be careful because of what it looks like to us. We need to be careful because of what it looks like to our great, great grandkids. What do we open the door for? What are we inviting if we do this? What are the potentials? And look at the last 100 years. Look at the technology from the 30s until now. Do you think they had any idea? Do you think we have any idea what it'll be like 80 years from now? So we have to be very forward thinking when we allow these laws to happen and these legal precedences to be made. It's a subject that I love. But anyways, John, you have got some things that you wanted to look at. We are going, okay, so changing gears, guys. We are going to discuss Washington, D.C. We're going to discuss what we know, what we've seen, and what we're expecting. Well, honestly, I don't think any of us have any clue what we're expecting. But in order to discuss this, I thought it was only fair that Mike would join us in this part of the discussion as well, because Mike is, of course, going with us. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Mr. Mike. How you doing, brother? Are you muted? You're muted. He muted himself.
Not doing too bad. How are you guys?
Not too bad, man. Not too bad. So, wanted to give you a second, though, if you wanted to jump in on any of the things that we had discussed so far. Any thoughts you wanted to add to those?
Not at this point. I still have yet to catch up. I just kind of came in the door.
Oh, man.
Do you guys see that?
What is
You
that?
guys see that? John had nothing to say. Mike had nothing to say. Man, that must have been some good stuff today.
He's in New York, so that would be some very long distance stuff. I can tell you that. I don't think anything's good enough to get you that high through the screen. Thanks.
John, so where are we at? What do we want? You wanted to show everybody a few things. So let's go ahead and show them a few things of what we know, what we've seen, and what we're looking into. So we have a few clips to share with you guys.
loaded.
Yeah, let me pull that up real quick.
John's working on it.
So one of the things that I always think is funny, Patrick, that a lot of people don't think about is how we're viewed by the world right now. What are the outside countries thinking about America? And that's why I pulled this up. I wanted us to take a look at this because this highlights what's going on. But listen to the terminology they're using when they're describing how our country actually is.
Here's that video, Jennifer. Oh my gosh, the speed at which that truck approached.
What started as a fight for justice has descended into chaos. On a Minnesota freeway, a tanker speeds directly toward a crowd of protesters, narrowly avoiding catastrophe. Protesters chase down the truck and swarm over the cabin. Eventually, the driver is dragged out and beaten by the mob. Before police arrive, dispersing the crowd and taking the driver into custody. 75 cities are living through these protests. Many are in flames. More than half have imposed curfews. In Atlanta, 2 officers have been fired for using excessive force, arresting 2 young African Americans. Body cam footage shows the woman screaming for help. In Michigan, every car on this street is on fire, windows smashed, tear gas deployed.
Tell your brothers and sisters, we will not win this fight with guns. It's not going to happen. We got to be peaceful.
Tear gas and rubber bullets too. In the beachside community of Santa Monica, 1,000 National Guard soldiers are patrolling LA streets, helping 20,000 police on the ground. With so much division, chaotic confrontations have been taking place across the country.
Well, this is the centre of Washington, D.C., the capital city of the world's most powerful nation. And as you can see, the people have just totally taken over. No matter what the police and other authorities do across America to try to stamp down on this protest movement, it seems that it keeps springing back up.
Protesters have defied Washington's first curfew. The National Guard deployed, but hundreds demonstrated as close to the White House as they could. One thing is bringing protesters together. People all over the country have started kneeling, a symbolic protest against police brutality. Now even police are joining in. George Floyd was the match that lit this explosion of violence. It's now taken a life of its own, and even further charges against the others involved in his death may not be enough.
You know, it's hard to watch stuff like that. And yeah, coming from another country, it's even worse in a sense. You know, we all know what's happening. We all see it every day. And yeah, how must the rest of the world feel about seeing us like that? And here's one thing I will say. I do not like being seen that way. I do not like being an American and or being represented that way as an American. There's a lot more to it than just that, I think, too. And it's hard. It's really, really hard to, because you can't blame them for the things that they say. You can't blame them for the reporting that they're doing. You have to understand that we have allowed this to break down into this sort of situation. But at the same time, as an American, I cannot watch that and not want to fix it or change it or do something, right? And I guess that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm sitting here like this and I'm having these conversations. That's why I'm going to Washington. That's why I speak out every day and I encourage you guys every single day, is because we need to represent ourselves now, because I don't think that I don't think that DC is going to do it. I don't think that our leaders are going to change the way that we're seen in the world. I think the American people can, though. What do you think, Mike?
I think it's only the American people that can. I think a lot of things that we want, we need to enforce, we need to build from the ground up. I think, listening to your neighbor and getting communities, together and organized and all that type of stuff, all of those things are done at the ground level. It's not done by the president. It's not done by Congress. We need people in there that understand how much needs to be done at ground level and how much is done at ground level. We need people in there that support the people doing these things instead of fatten their pocketbooks.
I think one of the things that gives me the most hope is how many people have joined in this, right? Like, I realize Breathe America doesn't seem that big right now, but I think it's going to be a very, very big thing. And I think it's because of all of the people like Mike and John and Kristen and all of the people in the back that have been pushing so hard. Carrie and Billy and all of them, right? All of them. Like, every single one of us have come together with the same goal in mind. And that is that now is the time that we can't sit by any longer. We have to do more. And one of the things I feel most strongly about is the fact that I don't want to leave this problem for my children to figure out later. There's a problem in our country right now, everybody. And I think right now is the time that we need to come together. We need to find a way to communicate with each other, and we need to grow from this experience and do the things that need to be done in order so that when my children, when my grandkids come into this world, that they only hear stories about how great America is, but the rest of the world sees us the way that they used to see us. That's ultimately what I want. The news reports from other countries come in and talk about how amazing America is, how groundbreaking we are, and how we have rebuilt from all of this. That's what I hope to see.
Yeah, everything that we do on the back end every day amazes me. Everything that I see from the group, the progress we make to the ways that we're helping people, the wish lists, everything on the community outreach side of things. This is how we help. This is how we make a change. These conversations, these actions, working together, caring about people, and doing things from the ground up.
This comment I want to discuss. They're talking about having a friend that escaped socialism and came to America, and they're worried. They're worried about America becoming what they escaped. Guys, this is exactly what we're facing. There have been other people that have come from very broken systems that are labeled as socialism or communism or whatever, that are really bad. And a lot of those people see where we're at now, see what's going on now, and they are worried. We are at a dangerous point. We really are. That is the truth. But I will not leave. I'm not going to go anywhere else. I'm going to stay right here, and we're going to fight for this, because ultimately that's what the American dream is, right? We do owe it to our ancestors and to future generations to fix these problems. And keep in mind, it's worth fighting for. It's worth it. That's the thing. We have the building blocks here, all the things that we need in order to get back to, in order to have all the things that protect the American people. Ultimately, it's about the American people, we the people. The three most powerful words ever written down, as far as I'm concerned.
And I think it's important to note that, to one degree, we need a level of socialism. socialism is not just that extreme thing. To some degree, it is working together in your community. You know, not everything socialism is government attached. We're going to need a lot of American businesses and American entrepreneurs to get our economy back on track after all this settles down. And personally, one way that I would like to see our culture go more socialistic is community-owned businesses, employee-owned businesses. You know, we don't talk about this. Whenever we talk about socialism, we talk about this hand coming down from the government crushing capitalism. But it can be a better way to do capitalism within our current structure. You know, if you have an employee-owned business, are they going to close the factory to move production to Mexico or China? No. Are they going to export their call center to India? No. What good does that do them and their community? Because they're tied to it. If you have, like, whether it's profit sharing, there's a wide range of varying degrees of socialism and capitalism merging. And the reason that we're so stringently taught to fear socialism is because the current form of capitalism is, whether you want to call it crony capitalism, corporate capitalism, it's very corrupted, and it uses government as its pawn to overreach what is supposed to be a free market. That's what these bailouts are. That's what all these government contracts are. And I think we as a people, again, building from the ground up, we can change a lot of that.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
I
see
don't
what you
disagree.
mean.
I think there's a lot of look. The word socialism tends to get a reaction out of conservatives, and I get it. Right, for a very, very long time, I had the exact same reaction. It doesn't mean I'm a socialist, though. I'm never going to use that term, bro. Sorry. I just recognize the fact that we already live in a system where we have a lot of socialism already. Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, all the welfare programs are socialist in nature. You're shaking your head at me. You disagree?
Mm-hmm. Because those are, if you think about it, all of those things are where big corporations that lobby and spend lots of money have control of government contracts and have buddies in Congress and this and that, and seem to always get their way more than the voters do.
That might be what they want now, or that might be what they are now, but that's not how they started out. Social Security started out a very progressive way to ensure retirement for the American people. And I would say that it was absolutely socialist when it started. Now, what happened is eventually
it got hijacked by corporatists.
Politicians got into that money and started using it for other things, which is why we don't retire like we are supposed to. But my point is that socialism, yes, socialism is what was implemented since FDR. You're 100% correct, Marina. Capitalism, socialism, communism, all these different forms of government that exist out there, they all have their strengths and their weaknesses. America has a lot of strengths, but we do have a few weaknesses. After 200 and something years, they're pretty evident right now. One of those weaknesses is a two-party system that literally works to divide the people. I don't think any Republican I know or any Democrat that I know is terribly, confident in the representation that they are getting from that party. But yet we still vote the party. We still stick to our team because we gotta vote for our team, right? It's the red team or the blue team. What's it going to be? And that is ultimately very dangerous to America. It's very dangerous to a republic. Mike, I love the idea of employee-owned businesses, not because I see them as a socialist thing, but actually because, like where I live, we have a company called Winco Foods. It's where I do most of my grocery shopping. They go head to head with Walmart all the time, and they don't have as much stuff as Walmart does. Let me tell you this right now, but they beat them on price a lot of the time, and their stores are really nice. I know people that have worked there. It started right here in Idaho, and now it's in multiple other states. But I know people that have worked there their whole career, retired, and when the company buys them out, they retire with over $1 million. Like, just the company buys back all the shares that they own, and they're forced to, right? Like, and they get themselves $1 million. How is that bad for us? Man. How is that bad for American people?
And here's the
thing.
You
shop at Winco too, John?
Oh man, I'm a huge fan of Winco. I know a lot of people that actually have worked there for years and years and years and had their careers there. They treated them really well during the coronavirus issues. They treated them really well in the past issues. We had Snowmageddon a couple years ago. I don't know if you remember that, Pat, but we got an unusually crazy amount of snow in Boise, and
the snowpocalypse is what I call it.
The snowpocalypse. And everybody lost their mind for a while. It was really hard. Those businesses really kicked in. They helped people. They were letting people take time off. Like, it really is a business for the employees. And, when I hear Winco, I certainly don't think Chairman Mao.
Right.
I don't think Stalin. No. You know what I mean? Like, I think,
I think better meat prices.
Here's why we're taught to fear things like that, is because that company isn't ever going to lobby against the interests of its employees. That company is never going to export their stores or their productions to Mexico. That's why we fear that. That's why we get taught to fear the little bit of socialism that is good, because the truth that we're not told is that in America, we're further right than free market.
We are.
Let me just say that any agreement that I give with you on the modicum of socialism not being inherently evil is because I believe that it is trumped by the American system. Mm-hmm. So it's okay to add small amounts of socialism to it.
I just don't think socialism is what we've been taught to believe it is.
Correct.
It is and it isn't. In some ways it is, in some ways it isn't. Like a full-blown socialist system where the government takes all control is very, very bad. Like,
That's not socialist. That's what we're taught to believe is socialist.
Well, I'm going to keep thinking that is really bad. Like, I'm a big believer.
That is really bad.
All the government, like, I haven't seen the government get a whole lot right. Look what they did with Social Security. Look what they did. Like, pick a program, Obamacare. Like, there's so many.
How big America is? Do you know how many Americans there are in America that all have to get channeled through the federal government and the state government, man? I don't like government. You know me. I'm a patriot. I'm constitutional Republican. I don't like the way that they did that. And when I said constitutional Republican, I'm saying constitutional republic not Republican. So when I talk about that, I'm saying, look, the American system is strong enough that we can play with a lot of these different issues on some scales, and we can borrow from here and we can borrow from there, whatever.
Exactly.
But we only focus on when these things come up and whether or not the government is an efficient force. We constantly complain about the government as being inefficient and never get anything right and never get anything done. They get a lot right. And it's not the big stuff. It's the humdrum, mundane, day-to-day stuff. More stuff in government works than not. The problem is the stuff that doesn't work is all the new crap they just threw in there that they still haven't figured out how to implement, and we didn't want in the first place. Like, I'm not voting for this crap. Who voted for this crap? I'd like to talk to them and ask them why. So, like, That's where I see it. We do have to be mindful of the federal government's inability to get things done. But we shouldn't say that the entire government doesn't work or it always gets everything wrong. Like, give credit where it's due. It works in some cases. There's some things that have worked well for years. There's other things that are fundamentally flawed from the gate.
There are things that have worked well for years, right up until they take control over it. Just saying. They tend to, they don't, I don't see, sure, there might be some small things that they get right. I'm not going to say they get everything wrong, but like, have you ever seen that? Like, what movie is that? Like, Independence Day, where, the dad's on the plane. He's like, you didn't really think it cost $50,000 for a toilet, did you? That's one of the funniest lines in a movie I've ever heard in my life. Like, they get a lot wrong. There's a lot of things that go on. And I'm never going to be a big fan of big government.
Nor should you.
I think the bigger the government gets, the smaller our freedoms get, period. So if we're going to have these programs that are designed to help the citizens, and they need to actually be designed to help the citizens, not help politicians. Now, that is one thing I will get behind 100%. And when I say small government, I mean real small government. But it's really funny. We brought Mike on to talk about DC. And somehow this is what happens, guys. We get together, we start talking, and who knows where the conversation is going to go. This is an every night conversation with us. But I want to steer us back real quick and let's get on to Washington, D.C. We're already at 52 minutes, so we've got about 8 minutes till we hit the hour mark. Let's talk D.C. Mike, what are your thoughts on us going to D.C.? What do you expect, if anything? Tell me what you're thinking.
One major thing that I'm expecting is to see blocks. I don't think it's going to be a single unified crowd. I don't think that it's going to be, I think we're going to see vastly different people there organizing in different ways, slightly different areas, competing for territory. I think we're going to have to be aware.
John? Amy, so John must not have heard me. What DC is about? There's a huge 50-day protest plan that's supposed to start the 17th of September. They have invited lots of different groups. From what we understand, you'll have BLM, you'll have the people from from Occupy Wall Street. From what we're hearing, you'll see Antifa, you'll see a whole bunch of different people there.
I heard the NFAC is going.
Yeah, which is an armed all black militia, which is anti-BLM, so that could get interesting. There's a lot of things that we're seeing and hearing, and so it starts the 17th. Me, John, and Mike will be on the ground. Are we glitching? I don't know, John, if we're glitching or not. I said your name and you didn't respond. I haven't heard you talk in a while, but you're muted. So
maybe it was just me that was glitching. Sorry.
It might have been just you that was glitching. So yeah, we're going to be there the 17th and the 18th. Maria Iroh. What is the protest to accomplish? John, tell Amy what the protest is to accomplish. What are their goals?
Mass chaos and annihilation. The goal, so to speak, is to have the government address a lot of the financial inequalities that are going on. So the Occupy Wall Street thing was for all those different CEOs. We remember when everybody was getting those first rounds of government bailouts and the housing market failed and everything popped and all these CEOs were getting big fat pensions and then cutting all their employees out and stuff. That was Occupy Wall Street, and that's the same people. That's Adbusters. So Adbusters are now trying to do another one at the Washington, D.C., which is Siege the White House, which, of course, they picked the word siege, right? Because that Boom, right there on the headlines. That looks great. But they're going to be doing that, basically protesting for 50 days straight unless President Trump or the administration comes out and immediately starts writing basically ethical business legislation. They also want charges filed against a lot of these big CEOs that have spent millions and millions of people's dollars of their investments and gotten off scot-free and given themselves pensions. But the scary part is they put out what we call the general call. And they've basically said, if you're upset about the government in any way, if any part of your activism has a economic portion to it, then we want you to join us for the 50-day riot. Well, the BLM organization was like, yep. Like all these different protests and activist areas and groups, they immediately signed on and said, yeah, we'll be there. And we've seen videos on the page about them setting up tents. People are already getting ready for it. So like, it's going to be something kind of thing. I don't think the end is going to resemble the beginning, if that makes sense. I don't think the reason they're going down there for the actual protest is what it's really going to be about.
I'm also starting to see, or not see, but starting to hear rumors of counter protests that are being put together that are not happy about this situation at all.
Don't shoot me. If any of you viewers are in Washington, D.C., look for the Breathe America logo and do not shoot me. Also, if Antifa is listening, stop it. Stop it right now. Stop. Okay. Anyways.
Yeah, please don't shoot any of us.
Don't shoot us.
At least not with actual bullets. I mean, if it's a rubber bullet, John will be okay.
I'm fine. Yeah, it's fine. Wait, what?
But yeah, we're starting to hear rumors about counter protests. We're starting to hear rumors about some other things, and considering what we've seen in other cities where things have gone on over extended period of time, I thought it was really important to be there when this thing started. When I first proposed this idea, what's really funny is both these guys on screen were like, absolutely not. You can't be there the first day. It's going to be too dangerous. Now they're both coming. So they tried to talk me out of being there the first day, but I'm like, nope, we got to see the beginning. We got to see how it starts. That's what matters. So if you are wondering who the crazy one is and who to blame for this, it's this guy. I think it's important, and I don't know if it's going to turn into a brawl. I don't know if it's going to turn into a fight. I don't know what it's going to turn into, you guys. I'm going to go in there with my head on a swivel. I can tell you that.
Aware.
I'm going to go in there ready. And you know,
So, Amy's asked us why we're going.
Well,
who?
For me, it boils down to we want to go in there, see what it is. Just like with Pat going into Portland, we want to hear from people actually going. We want to hear from the people there. We want to give you guys a view that's not tainted by mainstream media. We want to see for ourselves, to evaluate the situation for ourselves. And we'd like to share that experience with you, as always.
Absolutely.
On top of that, however many people are there, you know, we're gonna get the chance to talk somehow, some way. We're gonna find a way to talk to a lot of people, and that might be on a megaphone or a bullhorn to an entire crowd of people standing on a light post. I don't know how it's gonna happen. I want to try to make a difference. I want to try to help some of these people, let them know, like, you know what, that you're not alone, you know, but there's a better way, especially if it's about to turn violent. I want to try to calm that down if possible. I mean, I'm all for people's, what was that, Mike?
Maybe just to be the message, to breathe and to hear people out. And maybe we're not all that different.
Not only that, but I'd also like to, you know, I tell you guys every day that that we can accomplish what we're setting out to accomplish with love and understanding. And I have a feeling that night in that place with those crowds of people, they're going to need somebody to come in with a lot of love and understanding. And I happen to know a few people that have got some of that to share. So I think it's important that we're there. So I'm not going there expecting it to be ugly. I'm not going there expecting it to be, peaceful. I'm just going there because I think that's where I needed to be. And these two guys feel strongly enough, as well as another one of our friends is going to be meeting us there. You guys haven't met him yet. You might meet him when we're in DC. I'm not sure. We'll see how that goes. But, so there'll actually be 4 of us there. And I think it gives us the opportunity to not just report the truth, but to be a part of making that change, that wave of positivity that I talk about spreading all of the time. I can't do it just from Idaho. Mike can't do it just from Buffalo, right? Like, we're going to need to go to the places where we're needed the most. And when that happens, when things like this come up, we're going to go. This is something I believe a lot. This is something that being a part of, I think, is important for everyone. And I understand the risk. Mike understands the risk. John understands the risk. We all understand the risk. But ultimately, I think it is more important for us to share what happens on the 17th and the 18th. We will be there for the first 2 days. It's, who knows? Who knows? Some reports make it seem one way, other reports make it seem another. But at the end of the day, guys, we're going there to spread our message. And that message is to breathe. That message is to grow, to build yourself up, to be better today than you were yesterday. That message is to help bring America back together, to stop looking at each other based on what party we vote for, what laws we represent, what ideas we have for how our country. No, we're Americans. Americans are going to an American event to help other Americans. That's what it is. So, you guys, we've been on for just over an hour. I want to thank all of you who were in the comments and participating. Looks like John's Wi-Fi crapped out on him, so he won't get to say goodbye. But Mike, you got anything to add?
I'd just like to add that we're going to be doing a bunch of live content while we're there, and we're probably going to, one of the, I think, benefits of so many of us going is that we're going to have a chance to have a conversation from multiple perspectives, because all of us mods and admins back here don't all see issues the same, but we'll be able to have that conversation from multiple viewpoints who were all there to see things with their own eyes.
Yeah, we'll probably be live more there than we are ever before, guys. So I know it's a Wednesday. No, we land on a Wednesday. Thursday's the 17th is a Thursday. So we're going to be there Thursday night and Friday night. And I know Thursday morning, we got big plans of going. I can't wait. Look, there's also the little kid in me that is super excited about going to DC. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Like, I am really excited. I don't think I'm going to sleep the whole time I'm there. But we're going to do morning thoughts live from the Lincoln Memorial. We're going to see all the things that we can see during the day. And we're going to go live. We're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about what it's like for me to be in the nation's capital. I don't know if Mike's ever been there. I know John and I have never been there. So we're going to talk about these things a lot. And we're going to probably be on live, like, I don't know, constantly until our batteries die and we have to go recharge them. I'm trying to get us a place that's like 3 blocks from the Capitol building or from the White House, which means if things get completely out of control, we just got to make it 3 blocks. And we'll be out of it. So trying to be as cautious as we can be. But it's hard, like there's risk involved. So, but yeah, I'm excited to go. I'm excited for the day part of the trip. And I can't say that I'm nervous about the nighttime or the night part of the trip. It just has a different feel to it. It's not excitement. It's not fear. It's just like, okay, this is something. I don't know what to call it, but I want you guys to know that I appreciate every single one of you. I meant to bring this up earlier, but we still have a couple items on that wish list, and I know they're a little bit more expensive. But if you have the means to take care of that for that child, it would mean the world to me. Okay. So if you can, please do. And I appreciate everybody that jumped on there and got all that stuff coming for that family. Yeah, be a little bit better tomorrow than you were today, guys. Build yourself up. Keep your mind right. Stay positive. Hit them I am affirmations hard. Okay? Hit them hard. I love you guys. Have an amazing night, and I will see you in the morning.